you have to just build trust with people. And trust is the core of what we do. Our industry sells a promise. That's the only thing we sell is a promise. And that promise is we're going to help you find the right products and services that will take care of you in your time of need. We hope that time of need never comes to pass, but when it comes, we're going to try to make sure you're set up. Our industry sells a promise that we're going to take care of you better than our competitors do. We're going to give you service. We hear about that all the time. We sell trust. If you don't trust us, that doesn't happen.
Welcome to Benefits Broker Boost, the show that gives employee benefits brokers practical strategies to grow, scale, and streamline their business. Presented by Plansight, where innovation meets efficiency in employee benefits. Now, let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of Benefits Broker Boost. I'm your host, Adam Smith, and I'm excited to have Chris Vanderwolk with me here today. Chris is the Director of Compliance and Innovation for OneDigital. Chris, give us a little bit of your background before we jump into our conversation today.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Really excited to be with you today. So I've been a benefits industry veteran, nerd, policy wonk, however you want to say it. I started out, I've worn a lot of hats, but I started out as an account manager for an ancillary carrier, sold for a couple of ancillary carriers, ran a third-party administrator for better part of 9 years, was chief compliance officer for a general agency, and then vice president of client service success for a national consulting firm. And now I'm director of compliance and innovation at OneDigital, Kissel Tiffany, where my job is to try to help people figure out how to do the best things they can and move fast without breaking things.
Yeah, wow, you've been around the block a few times in the benefits space, so this will be really fun. You know, we connected because of a few of your posts that got a lot of traction, and you know you're leaning more into like the legal and compliance side of things, which is maybe a little bit of a blind spot for some people, or they're looking for that information, and so your posts are getting quite a bit of traction. But let's first start with your title, right? You've kind of got this title that, as I look at Director of Compliance and Innovation, you know, I'm a marketer, and every time I try to innovate, I feel like compliance is like the brakes to that innovation. So you've kind of got this like juxtaposed title that has two things fighting against each other. How do you balance those? And, you know, why does a broker need both of those to win right now?
Yeah, it's a great question because there is a tension between innovation and compliance. And innovation is maybe what should we do or what's next, and compliance is how do we do it? And the rules are often created after looking at something that went wrong. And so we get rules to protect against people having something bad happen to them. With that, there's a couple of philosophies, and I think you do need to have both compliance and innovation. If you're not innovative, you're going to lose your clients. You're going to continue to show up with out-of-date, obsolete solutions. But if you're not compliant, you're going to end up with scary letters, potentially penalties. You could get yourself in a lot of trouble. And you're also going to lose your client because even if their client never gets in trouble, somebody who comes in and explains all the holes in a really innovative but illegal or non-compliant strategy is going to take that client from you because of the risk you could be exposing your clients to. So we want to make sure we do things in a compliant manner, but we also want to make sure that we're chasing what the next best thing is, as long as it's the right thing. I don't think anybody would look at the current healthcare finance and delivery system and say it's perfect and we've nailed it. So we do need to continue to innovate. And a lot of the rules that we have now have gotten us to where we are now. And some of those rules probably need to change too. But for those of us that work with employers and their employees, their family members, their kids, we have to make sure that when we set something up, that we're setting it up for success so that when we make a promise to somebody, we can fall through on it. And that means that we know that we've got trust in our vendors, trust in our operational organization, trust in how we've laid everything out so that we don't set somebody up for success and just to have them fall on their face.
Yeah, that's really great insight. And I think that's the approach that a lot of agencies take. I don't think, at least there's not many that I've heard of that are like, you know, innovation at all costs, right? I think they're trying to balance both of those, but I think the actual logistics of balancing them is a little more difficult for people. So, you know, we're all in this space. We all get probably, I mean, I know I get a lot of emails every single day from people that have new strategies or new systems. So where there's those opportunities landing in people's inboxes every week, practically, how do you apply this? What's the first question you ask when a new software lands in someone's inbox and they're like, "Oh, that's actually kind of interesting." How do you vet that?
Yeah, and today it's harder than ever. Just a couple of years ago, anybody that showed up looking polished probably had some resources behind them. It's sort of like if you're my age, you grew up in a world where anything that was well written was probably fundamentally sound because it was either written by somebody who was educated and cared about their reputation or went through an editor and copywriting process. And now you've got really well written things, and polish is cheap. You can create a beautiful demo in 20 minutes and look like something that just a few years ago would have taken a development team months to put together. And that would have gone through all sorts of internal layers. So I think now I'll lean into my legal hat a little bit. The first thing I ask for when people are showing me something really cool is the source documents. So what does that mean? If it's a new spin on something you can do in the tax code, I want to see your analysis and I want to see your plan documents. And then I want to see what parts of the code you're leaning into because I want to then go look those up myself. If you've got this really cool new software, I certainly want to see it, but I also want to know what kind of guarantees or structure you have behind it. If you've got a SOC 2 badge on your website, I want to see the report. And I want to see what kind it is because there's two different types. You might have policies, great, but if you're not adhering to them, it doesn't help us out at all. Anybody can grab a JPEG off the internet and put it onto a website, 30 seconds, and I can look like I'm SOC 2 certified. So I think it's a matter of getting to the core of whatever the product is so you can dig into the details and understand if it's legitimate or not and step away from just the sales pitch.
Yeah, that's really great advice. You talked about like policies, right? Or like ideas that they might go apply in their business and that you want to see the legal documents and the source documents behind that. How is this an okay thing for me to do? What laws are you citing that I can go use? What parts of the code are you citing that I can go use? And then the other side is kind of vendors and software companies. And that's the one I would say. I mean, there's a lot going on in the space of new ideas and new ways to skin the cat, so to say, in the industry. But
Mm-hmm.
the one that is, I think, a little more scary with the evolution of AI and the ability to build a website overnight or in minutes even, and put all of those things on. So you mentioned the making sure that SOC 2 is actually SOC 2. Show me your reporting. Show me that you actually have done what you've done to accomplish this, that you adhere to those things. Anything else on the software side that you're looking at? Because I mean, I work in the marketing space, so I help people build websites literally in minutes with Claude or Codex, and it's really fast. So someone could, like you said, someone could look legitimate overnight. You
Yeah.
actually made a joke in our conversation of how do you tell if it's built on Lovable over the weekend?
Yeah.
Um, so SOC 2, obviously, like let's make sure that that's in place and that is properly being adhered to. Any other things in the tech space that you use to kind of vet? Because sometimes like SOC 2 is down the road after you've decided if you're interested or not, after you've seen if it works and you
Mm-hmm.
put some time into it. Anything like early on that you use to vet that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for our space, I mean, this is benefit broker boost. So we're dealing with a specific type of information, protected health information. So when a software vendor comes to you and wants to work with you and your employer clients and touch their PHI, well, what does that mean? That they should have a BAA. You should be able to sign a BAA with them that talks about how they're going to protect that PHI. And that's the type of thing that can be an instant disqualifier for a vendor for you to help you separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. Because if they have no comprehension of what a BAA is, or they're not willing to sign one, then both of those are two different ends of the spectrum where you're like, well, maybe they're not serious about working in benefits because everything we touch, plan enrollment information, claims information, there's so much PHI in there. And so a vendor who's gone through this process and has actually set up and structured their program to work right for a broker and for employers is probably not going to be asked for the first time from you during their sales pitch if they'll sign a BAA. If the sales rep says I got to talk to legal and find out if we'll sign a BAA, well, they're probably not your vendor. If they also say, yeah, sure, we'll sign whatever, they're probably also not your vendor. You shouldn't be the first one. Odds are they'll have a BAA they have, and that's got its own challenges because you got to make sure that it covers you appropriately. But if you are working with a plan and you've got a BAA to the plan, then you've got responsibilities to protect data. And that includes whatever systems you throw it into. So every system you put that PHI into would need to have that. And that again, reminder that it does include just simple enrollment information. So billing software, booklet software, if you're creating personalized communication materials, all of that touches on PHI. And so I think a BAA for a benefits broker is a really great way to start with, is this vendor really serious about my space?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's something that's pretty easy. Like you said, if they're working with a lot of people in the space, they'll know what it is. They will probably have one on hand that they work with, and they'll be willing to sign it. A couple other things that as a marketer, just test longevity. There's something called Wayback Machine. You can see how long their website has existed for. So you can go like last year, 2 years ago. You
Mm-hmm.
could look at when they registered their domain, things like that that just help you see like how long have they been operating as the business that they say they're operating as.
And
But
who are
then,
the people and what have they been doing? You can go to LinkedIn and see people's career history pretty easily.
hmm
And one of the things that I've used to understand companies is if somebody comes out with let's say a hot take on how you can interpret the tax code, well, are they a tax attorney? Did they spend decades at the Big Four? Or were they selling mortgages 20 minutes ago? And that's not to put a slight on people sell mortgages. I've had to get mortgages myself. I need their services. But if you're selling hot dogs on the side of the road, maybe your novel interpretation of the tax code is questionable if maybe the Big Four haven't gotten there too.
right. Yep. That's a good point. A funny situation like that. My brother-in-law is a dentist, and I worked in the dental space for a long time, and he pinged me about 2 weeks ago, and he just said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this AI company?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." Um, he sends me like a snapshot of the dashboard, and I've done enough in Claude that I'm like, that is Claude's user interface.
Yep.
So, um, I said, "What's the background?" He's like, "I'm not sure. Like, they seem like they're kind of a startup. They're like, we'll like give you a really good deal for the first couple of years." So I pulled the guy up on LinkedIn. He's working full time at another company, just doing this on the side. And I'm like, "Yeah, I probably wouldn't put yeah, PHI
Yeah.
through that platform because it's a side project for him."
Yeah,
So
Azari hasn't set up the right structures inside to protect that data. And who knows if he's even just operating on a consumer account
right,
versus actually having enterprise
exactly,
protections. And
exactly. Yep. So those are some really, really great pieces of advice that I would recommend for everyone. And at Plansight, we are a software company, right? So, and that's who puts on Benefit Broker Boost. But
mhm.
we encourage people like make sure that every single company you work with has SOC 2 and is adhering to that SOC 2 the requirements that they have. You know this as well. There's different levels to SOC 2. There's people that are more stringent with how they adhere to that than others. There's, what was the company that just got basically dismantled because they faked SOC 2 for like thousands of customers?
Oh, yeah. I'm not gonna say names. I don't want to get it wrong, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you
It was
shouldn't be doing. And part of that too. So in our world, I'm not gonna try to avoid banging the HIPAA drum over and over again, but people want a HIPAA privacy policy given to them, and that's a doable thing. But when you get this document, if it's a template, you need to read it and make sure it matches your practices and either update your practices to match the document or update the
right.
document to match your practices.
Yep.
And just having paper doesn't necessarily mean that it's what you're doing, and what you're doing needs to be in harmony with what you've written down.
Yeah. I've worked at multiple companies that have SOC 2, and there are different levels to what I'm personally as a marketer allowed to do at those companies. And I will say this Plansight is by far the most strict where there it's obvious that it's obvious that they're operating to the SOC 2 requirements and not just trying to get SOC 2 based on what they're doing. So
It's
real-
such a good, it's a good ethos to have, because when you write down the rules that you want to follow to do the right thing and you strive to do that, you're going to build a great culture to help people uh, feel safe doing the right thing. Because sometimes the wrong thing may be more, and I'm not saying this about you guys, but the wrong thing might make more money. The wrong thing might be a lot quieter. The right thing could be noisy and cost money. And when you build that culture where, hey, these are the rules we said we're going to follow all the time, you build the culture to follow it, that stuff matters. And your people will do the right thing because they know they're protected and they're safe to do it. And that's actually what the goal is.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So let's shift gears just a little bit here.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of going back to the ideas and practical things to do inside of an agency, not the software side. But we've seen some things that were really legitimate things that came out for a really good reason. We talked about the ERC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how that can get abused, and that bad actors come in and give it a bad name. So how do you identify when something that is a really legitimate, good thing that was put in place for the right reason has been spun into a place where it's kind of too good to be true, or people are pitching it to you when it shouldn't apply to you?
So just what you said, those words there, too good to be true. If it feels too good to be true, that's when my spidey sense gets up and I need to go look for it. And so the employee retention credits, double dip tax schemes. I'm a veteran myself, so I get ads in my personal social media feed saying I can qualify for VA disability, even if I have no documented disabilities. Those are the types of things where that we know intuitively that's not how these programs work. So that for starters, if we know it's hard to get VA disability, and somebody can get it for me online, if I have no documented injuries or illness, something should raise a red flag to you. So first, if it's too good to be true, that's a good one to look at. Second, I think if the only people who are telling you this thing is a great idea are the people who stand to make money from you if you agree to it, that should be a big red flag. And so with that, the corollary is you should have a counsel, or have, and not counsel as in COUNSEL like a lawyer. You don't need to have a lawyer on hand, but you should have a group of people that you trust, smart people that you can call, and you can be one of the smart people they call, but you should have a group of people that you trust that you can ask these things, who are not financially motivated by the outcome either way, because you want to be able to get an honest opinion from somebody. And the truth is that money does corrupt some people, and try to live by the idea that if you take care of the customer, the money takes care of itself. But some people will put aside their ethics to go and make a few more dollars. So I have people that I call when something is not clear to me, or if I'm not understanding something. And I do try to approach everything, even if my initial read is, hey, I think this isn't right. I try to approach it as maybe I'm wrong, because I certainly haven't seen everything and I don't know everything. But if it seems too good to be true, let me look into it a little bit more. Let me see what else there is. Let me hear their side. Let me go get their sources, because I am more than happy being wrong. I think it's a thing that we should be proud of if we can change our minds over time. You give me new data, I should have a new opinion. So if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If the only people who have something good to say about it are making money off it, that's a red flag. Those are the two big ones I would look for. And I know that this stuff is hard. I have a lot of passion and time dedicated to learning some of the nuances of this stuff, and I don't know all of it. And sometimes stuff pops up and it seems like a great idea, and then somebody will raise their hand and say, this breaks that law over there. You go, oh no, I didn't. This is not an easy world to navigate in, because to get into this business, you don't need a law degree.
Yeah, right. That's the idea that you gave there. I just want to dig into that a little bit, and having that counsel that you go to when you're trying to get other people's ideas on, hey, this idea just came to me. Anyone familiar with this at all? How have you built that? Right. That's something that exists a little bit in this space, but there's a lot of competition in this space. And I think it would be beneficial for listeners to hear some ideas on how to build that council?
So I think you have to just build trust with people, and trust is the core of what we do. Our industry sells a promise. That's the only thing we sell is a promise. And that promise is we're going to help you find the right products and services that will take care of you in your time of need. We hope that time of need never comes to pass, but when it comes, we're going to try to make sure you're set up. Our industry sells a promise that we're going to take care of you better than our competitors do. We're going to give you service. We hear about that all the time. We sell trust. If you don't trust us, that doesn't happen. I think also we can be candid with ourselves too and say that none of our organizations are capable of servicing everybody. And if you're an individual agent on your own, if you're still out there, kudos to you for surviving the wave of aggregation and still being independent. But what do you really have for a good career? You can build a good career off of 40 good clients. You don't need 4,000 clients. So there's somebody in your space, maybe they're somebody in your network from another territory, so you don't feel as threatened by them. I'm a big proponent of NABIP. I'm an active member of NABIP. I'm the incoming legislative chair, really involved in my state as well. And that's a great place to go and meet people who are not part of your chain of command, not in your local market, where you can go and you can ask those questions. And you also have to give trust to get trust. So maybe share a little bit. I don't presume that everybody's out there trying to steal your clients. If you think you've got something, there's somebody you can figure out who you can trust. And then I guess a plug for us, we work with brokers all the time, and that's specifically what we do. So you should have a relationship somewhere in the industry too with somebody who can help you out, whether that's a general agent or a compliance partner or somebody like that. There should be somebody you can reach out to and figure out what another read of the situation might be.
Yeah, great advice. One more that I would add there is LinkedIn. You can find people from completely different areas that are active on LinkedIn. Go, comment on the things that they're talking about, message them, obviously not just like only asking for their time, but trying to be a value add to them as well. That's a good place to build those relationships too.
Definitely. I've met wonderful people off of LinkedIn that I haven't yet met in the real world, but we have shared great information with each other. It's been awesome.
Agreed. Okay, so this one's fun because I think a lot of agencies get to a point where they're like, okay, this is a big enough decision that maybe it's not a DIY decision. When is the right time to stop DIYing the analysis? Or I guess what's the right situation to not DIY the analysis and to bring in an expert? And how does a broker or an agency find an expert that they can trust to come in and help them analyze a situation? Whether that's, hey, we're thinking about rolling this out with some of our clients, this strategy, or hey, we're thinking about this software. What's the kind of the line that you draw of don't DIY it at this point and bring in someone that can kind of opine on it in an expert position?
I think if we think about medical side, the operating room has a thing that they call a never event. So leaving a towel in somebody is a never event because it should never happen. And so if we think about our world, the FBI showing up on your doorstep is a never event. Nothing we do should require the FBI ever knocking on your door at 5 a.m, or the Department of Justice or anybody showing up. So those for sure, if you think there's a chance that what you're doing might be a crime, if there's a good reason to believe so, definitely go out and get somebody's opinion. For anything where you're telling the client should with a legal background, if you're not coming up with a contribution strategy, but they get a letter from the IRS and you say you should do this, that's the type of thing to talk to an attorney about or get somebody in there who knows what they're doing. If you get a penalty letter from the IRS for $150,000, I can assure you your representation of the IRS won't cost $150,000, but getting it wrong could. You might get it right just the same, but I think you can start doing a cost benefit analysis. And then if you don't have that council of people that you can call, you can, I would say, have a couple of good contacts you can ping on LinkedIn and then look to somebody else in the space. There's got to be somebody else. If you are still fighting getting an attorney, there might be somebody willing to help you out.
Yeah. So kind of go down. I mean, ideal scenario, if it's a big enough situation, bring in an attorney that can actually provide legal advice for you. But kind of go down that chain of command. If you don't feel like you're there yet, go to the community and see if you can find other people that can help you make that decision. Great advice there. Okay. So brokers and agencies feel a real pressure to move fast or get left behind, right? I hear that pretty
Yeah.
much every day is I don't want to get left behind in the AI wave. But there's a potential downside or a real risk in going about it the wrong way or investing in the wrong thing. But you're balancing those, right? That's your title, right? Balance the innovation and compliance. What's your framework for moving fast without breaking things that matter?
So I think first, take a breath, take a beat, look at the world around you, and never have we seen anything in this industry where the second mover went out of business. If we just look at the last 15 years, 16 years since the ACA passed, I remember when, so I live in the Northeast, and we were slow to the party for small groups moving to self-funding. And I remember when a couple of carriers came into New Jersey back in the early teens, so 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. They came in and it was really disruptive. They wrote some business. They didn't write a ton of business. But if you look from then to now with the big evolution to self-funding, everybody who was leery of it or waited to vet it out back then, they were able to adapt and become a part of it. So for the first part, I would say don't panic is step one, because overnight changes are not normally extinction events in this industry if you're swimming in the stream of where everybody else is. You don't want to be too far on either edge, but if you're in the stream, you're probably not going to be put out of business overnight. So first, don't panic. Second is, I think that there's a couple of good expressions, like the middle of the road is a good place to get run over. But I also think the middle of the road is a pretty safe place to be if you're going with traffic. And so when you look at somebody comes up with a new strategy and none of the major houses are doing it, none of the big four accountants will sign off on it, none of the major payroll providers will lead with it. You're looking at something that is way outside the norm. The two options are that it's really innovative and nobody's really gotten there yet, or it's not quite right as it sits. And it could be either of those things, but there will usually be some fast followers with something that's really innovative. It's hard to patent anything that we do on the consulting side or the service vendor side. In my experience, no vendor that has something that is a really great product and fully compliant and really innovative wants to keep it a secret from anybody. They want everybody to know about it as much as they can. So I think that there will be fast followers. Now, let's flip it around on the other side. There's like, with fast followers, every CFO from every mid-sized company gets an email at least once a month on a double dip tax scheme. And there's a bajillion promoters of those things. So there isn't always necessarily safety in the crowd, because there could be a whole crowd of people out that are doing this stuff. And that complicates things for sure. So I think generally you want to be innovative. You don't have to be first to be innovative. And in fact, often the first to do something gets left behind by the second or third who does it a lot better and learns the lessons that the first learned in the hard step forward. So I think it's an attitude that will help you do this. Keep in mind what your core priorities are. If you want to do things right, keep that front and center. Doing it right means making sure that you are looking out for new solutions and knowing that there will be better ways to do this. Whatever the challenge is, whether it's online enrollment, whether it's benefit communication, whether it's plan design and network selection, or direct contracting, or pharmacy carve out, or musculoskeletal point solutions, or diabetes care. There's a lot of problems, and there's a lot of solutions. And if you're open to what those are, but you keep in mind the balance of, I got to make sure we do this right. What are those things that I've learned along the way? I've learned that I've got to be protective of information for the HIPAA side. I've got to make sure that we write down how this works and that we follow those terms for ERISA. I've got to make sure that if we're taking a tax deduction, that we do it in accordance with the tax code. I've got to look at how we do these things and make sure it all fits in there before I go out there. If you think it's mostly good, run a pilot. Get a client who's interested. We've all got clients on a spectrum from really engaged and wanting to be innovative, wanting to lead the pack, and others who just don't want to be bothered except for during the renewal, and they just want you to go shop and beat up the carrier as much as you can to drive the price down, but they don't want to be bothered with doing any sort of extra work on there. Talk to those innovative ones and say, hey, there's this point solution out there. It may or may not return what they're saying. We haven't tried it yet, but I did look at their SOC 2. I did look at some of their plan documents. I looked at the BAA they suggested. I looked at the various components, and I think they're legit. And if you want to try it, we can try it. That's a great way to go ahead and try it. And then you've got your case study and you've got your story to go tell other clients and prospects as you go along. But so I think it's a combination of don't panic, but be open-minded. And if there's something good happening, don't just jump on, but be a fast follower, and you can do a lot.
Yeah, I love that advice. One additional, I'll come at it more from like the software buying side of things. I purchased a lot of software as a marketer in a lot of roles that I've had, and I like what you said. It's you don't have to be a first mover, but be a fast follower. So I will try to find something that's new. I will ask for references that are using it.
Yeah.
And I will keep tabs on that reference, right? Like, because if the reference has only been using it for a month, they might be pumped about it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But 6 months down the line, are they still pumped about it? And if they are, and if I have 3 or 4 contacts, I've been keeping tabs on it, I've vetted it properly, like you mentioned, then maybe it's time for me to move on it. And guess what? I'm still not late in the game.
No.
So one other this comes from my brother-in-law calling me about that AI company as well. He asked me specifically, he said, "Am I missing the boat on AI?" And my brother-in-law's name is Andrew. I said, "Andrew, what problem are you trying to solve?" And I said, "Because AI is going to do one of 2 things. It's going to free up time, or it's for people to do things that they need to be doing that they're not getting to right now, or it's going to free up time and decrease your labor costs." And I said, "What does your team have that they're not getting to right now that it would save time for? Or if it freed up labor costs, would you be willing to decrease your team size?" He said, I don't think there's anything there." I said, "Then you're probably not missing out on
Yeah.
the missing the boat there." So I do think when you're analyzing a technology solution, come at it from what am I actually trying to solve? And I commented on a post earlier today on LinkedIn where they were talking about one of the layoffs that was happening and citing AI, and um, I gave the advice of find something that you do almost the same way repeatedly that takes a lot of your team's time, and that's a good place to start with solving with AI. Can AI do that? Can it take a lot of that redundancy, that mundane work off of the plate? That's a good solution. So let me just kind of like from our this has really been a cool conversation for me, but let me try to like compact it all into like uh one ecosystem. So start with, are they legit, right? And that's, will they sign a BAA? Do they have SOC 2 in place the way they need to? How long have they existed for? Do they have other clients that they can give me as references that I can go and talk to ensure that they're doing a good job or that it's working? And this is for both sides
Mm-hmm.
of the coin. Now, when that happens, is it solving a need that I have, or am I just scared that I'm missing the boat when it comes to this type of software? Because we had someone that came to us a few months ago at Plansight, and Plansight, I will tell you right now, is just pure time savings, right? And for different people in different roles, that means different things. Sometimes it's increased client time. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's my account managers are strapped. They just need to save time so they can do what they need to do. Um, but this group came to us and they were not strapped for time. They actually had probably one person's worth of work that they had 2 people for. And we said, "Hey, we're probably not the right solution for you."
Yeah.
Right. So you're trying to solve a problem that you don't have.
Yeah.
and and so when you're approaching these things, make sure that you're honest with yourself. Am I trying to solve a problem that I have, or is this just like the shiny object syndrome, where it's like this seems really cool, but actually I don't really need it, but I don't
Yeah.
want to get left behind. So take that whole framework and move fast. Don't feel like you need to be the first to move. Vet properly, and you'll stay ahead of the curve because this industry takes a pretty long time to adopt if we look at the history. So you're not going to get left behind if you're actually thinking about those
Hmm.
things and thinking about them the right way. Did I miss anything in terms of like bringing that ecosystem together for the decision making?
I think that, and have some trusted advisors internally or somewhere, and just be mindful of the too good to be true. And if the only people are that are saying yes are going to make money off of that, I think that's the 4 points that we talked about.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's a really good framework for someone to use, and I think is really valuable for anyone
Yeah.
here. Okay, so if a broker or an agency adopts just one habit from this conversation to protect themselves and their clients, what would it be? Your top priority.
So I'm probably going to show my legal bias again, but check the primary sources. It's so easy to make assertions. It's so easy to say things these days. Check the primary source. So there is a hard written statute somewhere, or a tax code, or a SOC 2 audit, or some sort of real primary source. Check that, not the glitzy website or the hard sell, because the primary source is where you can find your peace of mind.
Great advice. And I would add to that, as someone who markets and sells this type of software, that hard sell, that pressure that you got to do it by today or the deal goes away, like don't ever let that supersede making sure that you've actually done all the due diligence.
Yeah.
The deal will come back around, or you can find someone else that does it similarly. Not someone that offers a service and is the only one that offers a service is not going to say, "Well, you only have till tonight to decide." They know that their product is good. They
Yeah.
know that people need it. So don't let the urgency get in the way of doing the proper vetting. So this has been a really cool conversation, Chris, and one unlike any we've had on Benefits Broker Boost yet, just because of your background and what you're actually doing in the space. So I appreciate your time. One thing that I love asking before, anyone that I have on the show that's in the industry, because the industry is changing so fast right now. I love asking, what has you most excited about being in the employee benefits space right now in 2026?
I think the most exciting thing right now is that a question that has been impossible to answer, and for years, is starting to be answerable, which is this fair? And so, is this a fair price for this surgery? Is this a fair price for this drug? Is this fair compensation for my advisor? Is this a fair process we're running? And up until recently, we didn't have data for any of that. It was all hidden behind uh, walls and NDAs, and treated as proprietary information. The price you were going to pay for your knee surgery was somebody else's proprietary info. And so, if we look at the CAA 21 and 26 and their requirements there, the hospital transparency regulations, I'm really excited that we're going to know whether it's fair. And ultimately, I think that makes for a better experience for everybody, because we'll be able to reward the good actors.
Hmm. I love that. I've been seeing a similar shift, and when people ask me this, because some people have turned it back on me when I've asked them, I think the industry is to a tipping point where the end user of employee benefits is it's painful enough for them that they're starting to ask the questions that require these things, like you're saying, that require the transparency. They're not just saying, "Okay, great, renew. We'll take the 3% increase because now it's a 15%
Yeah.
increase." And now they're saying, "Well, what, why?" Right? And so they're asking the harder questions and forcing that transparency. And that's going to, in my opinion, lead to real change in the employee benefits space, to a point where I see it tipping to actually treating the health of the person and not the results of the diseases that the people have, which will be a good spot for it to be. But Yeah.
We could do a whole extra episode on misaligned incentives.
Yeah, we could for sure, for sure. Maybe we'll have to give it a few months, and we'll see if we can put another one together. But that would be a fun episode.
That'd be
Uh,
fun.
Chris, I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are and how valuable your time is. So I appreciate you sharing with everyone. I think this was really valuable for people that are um, trying to be cutting edge and on the leading edge of innovation, but still wanting to make sure they have all their ducks in a row and they're doing things safely. I think this will be really valuable to them. So thank you again for your expertise and being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Adam. Really appreciate it.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of Benefits Broker Boost. Remember, be better tomorrow than you were today, and we'll see you next time.